She was left to die for decades. Now she owes her life to a human stranger. The Discovery. The warning lights on Commander Jace Reardon's salvage vessel flickered like dying stars as the ship limped through the asteroid field surrounding Kythera Prime. Smoke drifted from the navigation console where a cascade failure had turned his routine scavenging run into a nightmare of sparking circuits and failing life support. "Nora, tell me you've got something other than bad news," Jace muttered, his weathered hands dancing across emergency controls. At 43, he'd been running salvage operations long enough to know when a situation was sliding from bad to catastrophic. "I'm afraid optimism isn't in my programming, Commander," came the crisp reply from his ship's AI. Nora's voice carried that particular brand of electronic sarcasm that had kept Jace sane during years of solo runs through the galaxy's forgotten corners. "The hyperdrive is completely offline, life support is operating at 30% capacity, and we're currently drifting toward a Class X restricted planet with a reputation for making ships disappear." "Class X?" Jace's stomach dropped. "You mean Kythera Prime? The dead world where the ethereal civilization supposedly wiped itself out?" "The very same. Current trajectory will result in atmospheric entry in approximately 14 minutes. I should mention that emergency landing protocols for forbidden worlds are notably absent from my database." Jace strapped himself into the pilot's seat and took manual control, feeling the ship's sluggish response through the stick. Through the cracked viewport, Kythera Prime grew larger, a world of crimson storms and crystalline formations that caught the light of its dying star. According to legend, the ethereals had been masters of psychic technology before some catastrophe had turned their paradise into a graveyard. "Scanning for a landing site," Nora announced. "I'm detecting what appears to be a stable plateau near the ruins of a major city. The good news is that the atmosphere remains breathable. The bad news is that we'll be stranded until I can fabricate replacement parts for the hyperdrive." "How long?" "Assuming I can locate the necessary rare metals." "Approximately 6 weeks," Jace grimaced. 6 weeks on a dead world with dwindling supplies. He'd survived worse, but not by much. The ship shuddered as they hit the outer atmosphere, and he fought to keep their descent controlled. Crimson clouds whipped past the viewport, revealing glimpses of twisted spires and geometric patterns that hurt to look at directly. The landing was rougher than Jace preferred, but the ship remained intact. As the engines wound down, he found himself staring across a landscape that defied easy description. The ground appeared to be made of some translucent crystal that reflected the reddish sky and fractal patterns. In the distance, the ruins of what had once been a magnificent city rose like frozen music, organic curves intertwined with impossible angles that seemed to shift when viewed peripherally. "Atmospheric readings confirm the air is safe to breathe," Nora reported. "However, I'm detecting unusual energy signatures throughout the area. The ethereals appear to have left behind more than just pretty ruins." Jace suited up in his environmental gear and grabbed his toolkit. "Keep scanning for those metals we need. I'm going to take a look around, see if there's anything salvageable in those ruins." "Commander, I feel obligated to point out that the last 3 expeditions to this world never returned." "Yeah, well, they probably didn't have your charming personality to motivate them." Jace cycled through the airlock, stepping onto the crystal surface. The sensation was odd, solid yet slightly yielding, as if the ground itself was alive. The walk to the ruins took 20 minutes across terrain that played tricks on his eyes. What appeared to be solid pathways sometimes proved to be optical illusions, while gaps in the crystal revealed chambers and tunnels that extended deep underground. The ethereals, whoever they had been, possessed an understanding of space and dimension that made human architecture look like children's blocks. "I'm reading increasing energy levels as you approach the city center." Nora's voice crackled through his comm unit. "Whatever happened here, it left a significant psychic imprint on the local space-time." The first structures Jace encountered were partially collapsed, their smooth walls bearing no tool marks or joints. They appeared to have been grown rather than built, shaped by will and intention rather than hammer and nail. Strange symbols covered many surfaces, not carved but somehow embedded within the crystal itself, glowing faintly with inner light. He was photographing a particularly intricate pattern when his proximity detector began chiming. Something metallic lay buried beneath a fallen wall section. Using his plasma cutter, Jace carefully cleared away the debris, revealing what appeared to be a control console of some kind. The surface was covered in the same flowing script he'd seen elsewhere, but these symbols pulsed with a steady rhythm. "Nora, are you getting this?" He transmitted the visual feed back to his ship. "Fascinating. The energy patterns suggest this device is still active after thousands of years. Commander, I'm detecting a massive power source approximately 50 meters to your northeast. Whatever that console controls, it's drawing significant energy from somewhere." Curiosity overrode caution, a habit that had gotten Jace into trouble, more times than he cared to count. Following Nora's directions, he made his way through a maze of crystalline corridors until he emerged into what had once been a vast chamber. Most of the roof had collapsed, allowing the crimson light of Kythera Prime's sun to stream down onto a sight that stopped him cold. In the center of the chamber, a column of pure energy rose from floor to ceiling, a pillar of brilliant azure, light that hummed with barely contained power, and suspended within that column, perhaps 10 feet above the ground, was a figure that made Jace's breath catch in his throat. She was humanoid, but clearly not human. Her skin possessed a pale blue, tint that seemed to shift and shimmer like water, and her long white hair floated around her head as if she were submerged in liquid. She was tall and graceful, with features that were both alien and hauntingly beautiful. But it was her eyes that froze Jace in place, large, silver orbs that tracked his movement with unmistakable intelligence and desperate hope. "Commander?" Nora's voice was uncharacteristically subdued. "My scans indicate that the subject within the energy field is alive. Somehow, impossibly, she's been conscious within that prison for decades." Jace moved closer, studying the base of the energy column. The platform supporting it was covered in more of the flowing script, but these symbols pulsed in rhythm with the woman's heartbeat. She watched him approach, her lips moving in what might have been words, though no sound emerged. "How long has she been here?" Jace asked. "Based on the energy decay patterns, and assuming this is connected to the fall of ethereal civilization, at least 47 years. Possibly longer. 47 years. Conscious and aware, trapped in a prison of light." Jace had seen some cruel things in his years of military service and salvage work, but this was torture on a scale that made his stomach turn. The woman's eyes met his, and in them he saw not madness, which would have been a mercy, but a sharp intelligence tempered by unimaginable suffering. "There has to be a way to shut this down," he muttered, examining the base of the column more closely. "Commander, I strongly advise against interfering with unknown ethereal technology. The energy levels alone could—" "Nora, shut up for a minute." Jace knelt beside the platform, running his hands over its surface. The symbols were warm to the touch, and he could feel a faint vibration running through the crystal. Some of the script appeared different from the rest, darker, more recently activated. The woman above him gestured frantically, trying to communicate something. Her mouth moved in a pattern that might have been language, and she pointed repeatedly at one section of the platform. "She's trying to tell me something," Jace said. "There, that symbol cluster. It's different from the others. Commander, please reconsider. We don't know what safeguards might be in place. Releasing her could trigger defensive systems or worse." But Jace was already reaching toward the indicated symbols. The moment his fingers made contact, several things happened simultaneously. The symbols flared with brilliant light. The energy column wavered and flickered, and somewhere in the distance an alarm began to wail with a sound like screaming metal. The woman in the column gasped, the first sound she'd been able to make in decades, and the azure light began to fade. She dropped toward the platform, and Jace lunged forward to catch her, nearly buckling under her unexpected weight. Her skin was fever-hot against his arms, and she trembled like someone emerging from deep cold. "Commander," Nora's voice cut through the wailing alarms. "I'm detecting massive power fluctuations throughout the city. Ancient defense systems are coming online. You need to get back to the ship immediately." The woman in his arms looked up at him with those impossible silver eyes. When she spoke, her voice was like wind chimes in a gentle breeze, though the words were clearly strained from disuse. You Don't understand what you've done, she whispered. I am Zara Vex, last keeper of the Void Song. I was imprisoned here not as punishment, but as protection. Her grip on his arm was surprisingly strong. My people built this prison to contain me, because the weapon I carry could unmake stars. The ground beneath them began to shake, and through the gaps in the ceiling, Jace could see mechanical shapes moving against the crimson sky. Ancient guardians awakening after millennia of sleep. The containment breach will trigger a signal, Zara continued, struggling to stand. Others will come. The hegemony has waited decades for a chance to claim the Void Song for themselves. Then we'd better not be here when they arrive, Jace said, supporting her weight as they made their way back through the crystal maze. Nora, warm up the engines, we're leaving, now. I should point out that our hyperdrive is still non-functional. Then fix it faster. Behind them, the ruins of the ethereal city began to glow with awakening power. Ancient machines that had slumbered for generations stirred to life, and in the distance, Jace could see shapes rising from hidden bays, pursuit craft that had been waiting 47 years for this moment. As they stumbled toward his ship, Zara looked back at the energy prison that had been her home for nearly half a century. You have freed me, she said softly, but in doing so, you may have doomed us both. The hunt begins now, Jace Reardon, and it will not end until one of us dies. The salvage ship lifted off just as the first Guardian drones reached the landing site, their weapons painting the crystal ground with destructive light. As Kythera Prime fell away beneath them, Jace wondered if his grandmother had been right when she told him that his curiosity would be the death of him. In the distance, space rippled as unknown ships dropped out of hyperspace, already moving to intercept. The Crimson Vigil Part 2, The Hunt, begins 3 weeks after their desperate escape from Kythera Prime. Jace Reardon's salvage ship limped into the shadow of Meridian Base, a remote research station orbiting the gas giant Helios. The journey had been a nightmare of constant repairs, dodging patrol ships and watching Zara Vex slowly recover from her decades of imprisonment. Meridian Control, this is Salvage Vessel Wanderer requesting emergency docking, Jace transmitted, hoping his old friend Dr. Kira Thorne still ran the xenoarchaeology department here. Jace? The familiar voice that crackled through the comm brought a smile to his weathered face. What the hell are you doing in hegemony space? Last I heard, you were persona non grata after that incident on Proxima Station. Long story, Kira. I've got a passenger who needs medical attention and somewhere safe to lay low for a while. There was a pause. How much trouble are you in this time? Jace glanced at Zara, who sat in the co-pilot seat staring out at the stars with those unsettling silver eyes. She'd said little during their flight, spending most of her time in what appeared to be deep meditation. When she did speak, it was usually to warn him about pursuing ships that appeared on their sensors hours before Nora could detect them. The kind that might get us all killed, he admitted. Docking Bay 7. And Jace? Come alone first. I want to know what I'm getting into before you bring your mysterious passenger aboard. Meridian Base was a sprawling construct of interconnected modules and research labs, home to some of the galaxy's most brilliant and eccentric scientists. Dr. Kira Thorne fit both categories perfectly. Jace found her in her usual habitat. Buried in ancient artifacts in a lab that looked like a museum had exploded, Kira hadn't changed much in the 5 years since he'd last seen her. Still tall and rangy, with short-cropped auburn hair and the kind of intense green eyes that seemed to look right through whatever they focused on. She wore her standard uniform of practical field clothes covered in dust from a dozen different worlds. You look terrible, she said without preamble, embracing him briefly. And that's saying something, considering your usual standards. Thanks for the ego boost. Jace settled into a chair that creaked ominously under his weight. Kira, I need you to listen to what I'm about to tell you, and try not to have me committed to a psychiatric facility. Now you've got my attention. Jace told her everything. The crash on Kythera Prime, the discovery of the energy prison, Zara's claim about being the last keeper of something called the Void Song. Kira listened without interruption, her expression growing more serious with each detail. An ethereal, she breathed when he finished. A living ethereal. Jace, do you have any idea what this means? They've been extinct for over 1,000 years. Their technology, their understanding of psychic forces, it's the foundation of half our modern civilization. She's not a museum exhibit, Kira. She's a person who was tortured for 47 years. I know. But the archaeological implications, alone. Kira shook her head. Where is she now? Still on my ship. She's been cautious about trusting new people. Can't say I blame her. Bring her here. I have a private medical bay where she can rest, and I want to run some scans. If she's really ethereal, there might be physiological needs we don't understand. An hour later, Jace was helping Zara navigate the corridors of Meridian Base. She moved with fluid grace despite her ordeal, but he could see the way she flinched at sudden sounds and how her eyes constantly scanned for threats. The research station's academic atmosphere seemed to ease her tension slightly. Kira's reaction to seeing Zara in person was worth recording. The xenoarchaeologist, normally composed and analytical, stood frozen in her lab doorway for a full 10 seconds before remembering to breathe. Magnificent, she whispered. The bone structure, the skin pigmentation, it matches the artistic representations we found, but seeing it in person... She caught herself and stepped forward, extending her hand. I'm Dr. Kira Thorne. Welcome to Meridian Base. Zara studied Kira with those unnerving silver eyes before accepting the handshake. You are a seeker of old truths, she said, her voice carrying that strange harmonic quality. I can sense the echoes of ancient places upon you. You can sense that? Your people call it psychic ability. For ethereals, it is simply another sense, like sight or hearing. Zara moved to the medical scanner Kira had prepared. You wish to study me? Only if you're comfortable with it. I'm more interested in helping you recover than satisfying my curiosity. As Kira ran her scans, Zara began to speak about her people, not the dry historical facts found in archaeological records, but living memories of a civilization that had touched the fundamental forces of the universe. We were the builders of the Great Network, she explained, referring to the hyperspace jump gates that connected the galaxy. But we grew too powerful, too ambitious. The Void Song was our greatest achievement and our ultimate downfall. What exactly is the Void Song? Kira asked, her scanner revealing biological processes that defied current medical understanding. Zara's expression darkened. A weapon that feeds on stellar collapse. It can turn a star's own nuclear fires against itself, creating cascading failures that spread through entire systems. My people created it to defend against an invasion from outside our galaxy, but the temptation to use it for conquest proved too great. Jace felt a chill run down his spine. You're talking about something that can destroy solar systems. The knowledge is carried in my genetic memory, passed down through generations of keepers. When my people realized what they had become, they chose extinction rather than continue their rampage across the stars. I was the last to survive, and they imprisoned me to ensure the Void Song could never be used again. But now you're free, Kira said softly. Now I am free, and the hegemony knows it. They have spent centuries searching for ethereal survivors, hoping to claim our weapons for themselves. My escape from Kythera Prime will have sent signals across the galaxy. As if summoned by her words, Meridian Base's alert system began wailing. Emergency lights bathed the lab in red as automated systems announced an incoming fleet. This is Captain Rex Hawthorne of the hegemony vessel Sovereign Justice. A cold voice echoed through the station's communication system. We are conducting a lawful search for a dangerous fugitive. Prepare to be boarded. Jace cursed under his breath. Hawthorne had a reputation as the hegemony's most ruthless bounty hunter, a man who had never failed to bring in his target, dead or alive. We need to get Zara out of here, Kira said, but the ethereal woman was already shaking her head. There is nowhere to run. Hawthorne has surrounded the station with interdiction fields. No ship can enter or leave hyperspace within this system. Through the lab's viewport, they could see the approaching fleet, massive warships bristling with weapons, moving with the confident precision of predators closing in on helpless prey. "I will not allow innocent people to die for my freedom," Zara said, standing with quiet dignity. "I will surrender myself to—" "Like hell you will." Jace grabbed his toolkit, mind racing through possibilities. "Kira, you still have that experimental ship in Bay 12? The one with the prototype hyperdrive? The Starfire? It's not ready for field testing. The drive system is completely untested and will it fly? Theoretically, but then that's our way out." Zara placed a hand on his arm, her touch sending strange vibrations through his nervous system. "You don't understand what you're risking. The hegemony will brand you as traitors. You'll be hunted for the rest of your lives." "Been there before," Jace said grimly. "Besides, someone once told me that being decent was more important than being smart." Kira was already moving, grabbing essential data crystals from her research computers. "The Starfire is in the restricted section. We'll need to move fast. Once Hawthorne's troops board, they'll lock down the entire station." They made their way through maintenance corridors as the sound of docking clamps echoed through the station's hull. Hawthorne wasn't wasting any time. Emergency bulkheads sealed sections behind them as Meridian Base went into full lockdown protocol. The prototype ship Starfire was sleek and predatory, built for speed rather than comfort. Its hull incorporated ethereal design principles that Kira had discovered in her research, organic curves that seemed to flow like frozen liquid. "Ironic," Zara observed as they boarded. "Your people have been trying to recreate our technology for centuries, and now you use it to help one of us escape." The ship's systems came online with a low harmonic hum that seemed to resonate with Zara's presence. She moved to the navigation console, her hands dancing over controls with the familiarity of genetic memory. "The hyperdrive resonates with ethereal neural patterns," she explained. "I can interface with it directly, guide us through hyperspace without the usual navigation computers." "Can you get us past the interdiction field?" Kira asked from the pilot's seat. "Yes, but not to anywhere they won't expect. The hegemony has files on every inhabited system, every safe haven." Zara's eyes took on a distant look. "But there is one place they cannot follow, the last sanctuary of my people hidden beyond the galactic rim." The bay doors opened, revealing the star field beyond and the ominous shapes of Hawthorne's fleet. Energy weapons began charging as the Starfire emerged from the station. "This is your final warning," Hawthorne's voice crackled over the comm. "Return to the station immediately or we will open fire." Instead of responding, Zara placed her hands on the hyperdrive controls. The ship's hull began to glow with the same azure light that had once imprisoned her, and space around them started to ripple and distort. "Impossible," Hawthorne snarled. "No ship can jump through an interdiction field. No human ship," Zara corrected, her voice carrying new harmonics as she connected with the vessel's ethereal systems. "But this ship remembers the songs my people sang among the stars." The Starfire vanished in a burst of brilliant light, leaving Hawthorne's fleet behind as it leaped into a hyperspace corridor that hadn't been used for 1,000 years. As the ship traveled through the swirling chaos of hyperspace, Zara revealed the final truth that would change everything they thought they knew about her imprisonment. "My people didn't imprison me to protect the galaxy from the Void Song," she said quietly. "They imprisoned me to protect the galaxy from my grief and rage. I am the last ethereal because I destroyed the rest of my race in a moment of madness, using the very weapon I was meant to safeguard." The revelation hung in the air like a physical weight. Jace and Kira exchanged glances, suddenly understanding that they weren't just harboring a refugee. They were traveling with someone who had committed genocide on an unimaginable scale. "The sanctuary we seek," Zara continued, "is not a refuge. It is a prison built by my own people to contain me for eternity. And by freeing me, by showing me kindness, when I expected only hatred, you have given me something I thought I had lost forever." "What's that?" Kira asked softly. "Hope. And hope for someone who carries the power to unmake suns may be the most dangerous thing of all." As the Starfire hurtled toward the galactic rim and secrets that had been buried for a millennium, Captain Rex Hawthorne plotted his pursuit with cold determination. The hunt had only begun, and he had never failed to claim his prey. The game of cat and mouse among the stars was about to enter its deadliest phase.